When you think of giants, what do you think of? 10 feet or taller, strong as hell while also being a little volatile? Yeah, no, I agree. That is exactly what I think of. Now, don't think I'm losing my mind when I say this, but what if maybe giants were never a thing of fairy tales and instead walked this earth the same way we do now? Now, obviously, we've all grown up seeing all kinds of giants depicted in media and literature, and I mean lots of giants. Now, me personally, I don't think I would have batted an eye or even given the concept of giants as a whole a second thought like maybe a month ago. But now, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm 100% convinced of their existence, but I will say that I find these weird things so much more fascinating now, and I'm able to view them in a way different way. Now, in this video, I'm going to be dividing into 3 different versions of giants, being the Book of Enoch, giants in Greek mythology, and the Quran. Next, we're going to go over real-life accounts and alleged proof of giants in our world today. My name is Mason Poole, let's kill it. The Nephilim. Because of me taking a sudden dive of fascination into the Book of Enoch a few months ago, the Nephilim are what I personally am more familiar with just based on how much I had already looked into them prior and the familiarity I have with the Book of Enoch. I would like to preface before getting started that although I will be talking about myths and religion, I of course am coming from a very neutral standpoint while speaking on anything, and my goal is not to sway anyone's beliefs. Now, the Book of Enoch was never originally included in the Bible due to the early leaders deeming it to not be of the Word of God, as well as contradictory to the already written scriptures and potentially the established doctrine at that time, which is referring to the mystical themes such as the ones we're going to talk about today. Although at that time, some early Christians respected it, it was mentioned in the Book of Jude and mentioned briefly in the New Testament. The book being left out led to it being one of the handful of apocryphal books, but either way, I still find it to be such an interesting thing to learn about, and if you're interested in that after this video or any of the other subjects that I take on in this video, then I would highly suggest you look into it yourself. And I will be leaving every single, all the links to all the websites and different things that I visited. I will be leaving that in my description below, so feel free to look into that. But I would also like to mention that Enoch is the son of Seth, who is the son of Adam. The bloodline is also suggested to carry the image of God, although the meaning of that could be very broad. And this is not really mentioned often throughout the scriptures, which leads to a lot of confusion, at least that I've seen, over who Enoch really is. But what I believe he is the son of Adam, the son of Seth, the grandson of Adam. Now, onto the giants. So, as it's told in the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim came to be when a group of 200 fallen angels known as the Watchers descended from heaven to Mount Hermon with the plan to get with the human women under the mindset of, we're going down together. So, when God got wind of the rebellion, 199 of the angels were bound to chains of darkness to wait for Judgment Day. So, in Jude 1:6, it says that, "And the angels who did not keep their position of authority and left their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness," which is supposedly Tartarus, "bound to everlasting chains for judgment on the great day." So they were banished, while their leader Azazel was also banished, but he was banished to the desert, to be covered in darkness until the end of time. So, from all of that, you might be thinking, that's bad, right? So far, that's pretty bad. But as it happens, God was not only upset by the angels defying him and leaving their posts in heaven, God was angry because the Watchers had done what they had set out to do and fornicated with the human women, leading to the sinful conception of the Nephilim. In 1 Enoch 15:8, it is stated, "And now the giants who are produced from the spirits of flesh shall be called evil spirits of earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling." Well, that didn't really last long, honestly, because when God got wind of the fact the fallen angels not only made a bunch of demon babies around earth, but were also teaching the humans all kinds of forbidden knowledge, well, their said babies started to become a wee bit savage and cannibalistic and defiant. Yeah, he went ahead and sent that flood to wipe everything out and then sent those angels away. Now, one thing that is inconsistent with the other 2 kinds of giants that I will go over is a mention of the Great Flood. While we're on the topic, I wanted to throw out there that the Great Flood, or talk of something of the sort, is a reoccurring thing throughout a decent amount of religions along with mythology, which I personally find very interesting, how different religions and mythologies can all talk about one thing, one specific thing, and they can all just kind of circle back to that. So, I don't know, I wanted to add that in just because I personally find it very fascinating. Greek mythology. Not to be confused with Titans, which I also, very interesting to learn about. The giants in this mythology were born from the Battle of Cronus and his father Uranus, and this battle led to Uranus being castrated by his son, causing that blood to fall onto and impregnate Gaia, which is Earth, and from that came the giants. So, the giants in Greek mythology were depicted as a great race and known to be more chaotic and rebellious than Titans. The Higante were mostly talked about in the Theogony, but also were mentioned a little bit in the Odyssey, and in those books they were described as large in size, although their size seemingly varied a little bit. They were partially human, and they possibly had legs of tightly wound snakes, along with some of them having the heads of lions, interesting enough. According to Apollodorus, these creatures were unsurpassed in the size of their bodies and unconquerable by virtue of their power. They were frightening in appearance, with long hair that swept down from their heads to their chins, and serpent scales covering their lower limbs. The Higante were really not on Earth for a prolonged period of time, due to them being made with a specific purpose. I mean, you didn't think this happened by chance, right? Gaia, furious that the Olympians had trapped and imprisoned her children, the Titans, after the Titanomachy, and they were imprisoned to Tartarus, another Tartarus mentioned, she used the blood of Uranus to create the giants in an attempt to attack the heavens, overthrow Zeus, and I'm assuming free her children in the process. And this is what we called the Gigantomachia, or Gigantomachy. There aren't very many details told about this specific battle, but according to Apollodorus, they lost. I mean, the poor things, they were throwing all kinds of stones and trees that they could, but when Zeus called on the half-mortal Heracles to aid him and the Olympians, they did not last very long. I mean, it's said that after the giants were slain, those who were not wiped out were buried beneath volcanoes, causing eruptions and earthquakes, and as well as some of the blood of the fallen race contributing to the creation of humans. While there aren't very many details about the Higante, we do get a handful of information and names about certain giants in Greek mythology, and so I'm going to very quickly go over a small amount of them, but especially how they died, for the sake of time and because why not. Encelades was crushed under Sicily by Athena. Porphyrion, supposedly the greatest of the giants, was shot with an arrow by either Apollo or Hercules and was inevitably finished off by Zeus. The son of Poseidon, Orion, had the ability to walk on water and was able to spend the last half of his life serving as Artemis's hunting companion, and then passed away on Delos before becoming a constellation, the one that we are familiar with. And then Polyphemus, a Cyclops giant and also the son of Poseidon, is known for his encounter with Odysseus, and I honestly really wanted to add him because I love Epic the Musical. Sue me. The ad, or the odd. I'm sorry, I should have, before I recorded this, I deeply apologize. I meant to look up the proper pronunciation before this video, and I completely forgot, and my phone is being preoccupied at the moment, so I don't really have a chance to. But I'm going to try the pronunciation the best I can. The ad. The ad were very interesting because, apart from scholars suggesting they were incredibly tall, up to 100 feet tall, these beings were known for their immense size and strength, therefore earning wealth and being given their own land with the ability to build and prosper. Sadly, the ad used the freedom they were given to begin engaging in forbidden practices and worshipings, being worship of idols, which is paganism and idol worship alongside God, collective leadership, following the orders of a powerful but equally as greedy ruling class, satanic influence, encouraging them that their wrongful actions were justified, building monuments, using their strength to build unnecessary monuments versus using their strength for good, and rejection of prophets. Because after the prophet Hud was sent to remind the giants of their morality, they continued their corruption and defiance of Allah, leading to their ultimate downfall. In 41:15 of the Quran, it says, "As for Ad, they were arrogant upon the earth, without right, and said, 'Who is greater than us in strength?' Did they not consider that Allah, who created them, was greater than them in strength? But they were rejecting our signs." The punishment for these beings was screaming violent wind, and away they went. In 1160, it says that they were pursued by a curse in this world, and on the day of the rising, yes, indeed, Ad rejected their lord. So away with Ad, the people of Hud. What I really enjoy about this story of Ad is, I mean, at least from what I've personally interpreted, the downfall of the giants was not completely based on their, like, personality traits or, like, the way they were born exactly. A lot of it was the world knowledge that they decided to delve into and the environment that they created for themselves, along with the environment that they chose to surround themselves with. A connection you could probably find between the giants in the Quran and the giants in the Bible would be the history or the story with David and Jalut, otherwise known as the story of David and Goliath. So if you're unfamiliar with the story of David and Goliath, Jalut was a fearsome giant and the king of the Philistines who had conquered Bani Israel, which is children of Israel. Just like in the well-known story, Jalut was defeated in a battle against the prophet David using only a slingshot. Now, I would also feel bad if I brought up the ad and didn't bring up the Thamud, which showed up for a little bit after the previous giant race, being the ad. The Thamud were mostly known for their architecture skills and being able to efficiently carve structures directly into sandstone cliffs. And honestly, I think I could definitely possibly see some parallels between them and the ad, because the Thamud were also one day visited by the prophet Salih, who was sent by God in order to call the people to monotheism. As a test, they were presented with a she-camel to graze their land and provide them with resources. They decided that the camel was bullshit and ultimately killed it, leading them to also be destroyed by a divine punishment. So, away with the Thamud as well. Now, before we move on to the accounts of giants outside of religion and such, I would like to share at least the names of other religions that canonically share giants as well. We have Hinduism, in which they are called Daityas, Danavas, and Rakshas. In Norse mythology, they are referred to as Jotnar. In Celtic religions, they are Fomorians. In African mythology, they are called Izingane Zomplabathi, or the Children of Earth, and Native American folk includes different groups, the Mesopotamian myth, and the Sumerian epics. The Giant of Kandahar. Now, I came across this story just like very casually a little bit ago when I first started getting into the Book of Enoch, and I first started learning about the Nephilim on my own, and the Giant of Kandahar just kind of came up, and I just thought it was a very interesting story, and so, or at least legend, encounter, whatever. So this one is probably my favorite that I've heard of, at least so far, and then I'll mention another one of my favorites later on, but it's not really like this. It's a newspaper clipping, but we will get to that in a second. So the Giant of Kandahar. In 2002, a U.S. military unit went missing in the mountains of Afghanistan, and so the Green Beret team decides they want to go out and investigate what's around them, of course. So the team came to the entrance of a cave, and at the foot of the cave came to discover missing patrol equipment and human remains right before a giant-sized being came charging out of the cave and speared a soldier named Dan. Allegedly, the team defeated the giant, and its body was removed by a helicopter for it to be taken to a C-130 for transport and to never be seen again. Well, the soldiers ended up having to sign NDAs and fill out incident reports in order to suppress and hide the information. Due to the loss of information and documents, the story's credibility is still, of course, undetermined, but I believe that this story came to light when an anonymous military pilot involved shared the story. You could also find an interview on YouTube with a man who claims to be a soldier. I'm pretty sure you could, if you just look it up, you could probably find both interviews pretty easily. I will say though, apparently around the Afghanistan mountain regions and surrounding countries as well, some locals and military units that have visited or been posted have also shared mentions of giants as well. So, I mean, take that as you will. In plain sight. In 1784, American theologian, clergyman, and Yale president Ezra Miller sent a letter to Thomas Jefferson, in which he depicted the discovery of giant bones. And I will leave a link down below to the full letter if you'd be interested in reading it, because I'm not going to be reading the whole thing, because, I mean, it's not a super long letter. If you read it, you could probably finish it pretty fast, and most of the information is just in the first and second paragraph, but ain't nobody got time for that, so I will just read you this quote that says, "Indeed, an ingenious virtuoso, about 15 years ago, ventured to oppose this opinion and assert them to be the bones of giants," but I forgot his name. I really wish I could have pinpointed a moment in history outside of, biblical texts and myths mentioning like how far back giants go, or seeing if I could maybe pinpoint the start. But as far as I could tell, artwork depicting them, as well as articles and passages about discoveries surrounding them, literally go back to before the Common Era, BCE. And so I honestly just picked out like 3 newspaper articles that I personally just really enjoyed reading about the most. In Douglas, Arizona, 1922, it was reported that they had uncovered bones after a heavy rain in the area. According to the newspaper article, it was declared that the stature of the race must have been twice that of the average man today, even going on to say that one skull reached the thickness of about an inch. In Michigan, 1895, claims were made that they had dug up a skeleton saying that the man must have been at least 11 feet tall. And lastly, in Mexico, 1905, more skeletons were discovered, or a skeleton of a man who in life walked with his head 9 feet above the earth, along with enough of these bones to make 200 skeletons. And that one was actually my favorite newspaper clipping that I mentioned earlier. Because what do you mean you found 200 skeletons that are 9 feet tall? I don't know, that's just crazy to me. All of the newspaper articles as well will be in the description below, along with many other newspaper articles that I did not add in. So if you want to go and you want to even look into more articles than that, feel free. They're all going to be on that website that I will link in the description. To end off this video, I would like to share a couple of natural formations that, even if you don't believe are giant-made in some sense, I still feel like it is very interesting to see the comparisons. So we have Roche Bonham, Old Man of the Mountain, Profile Rock, and Mount Pimigawasset. All of these mountain or rock formations have one thing in common, and that is the fact that you can see human features in each of them. And there are multiple rock and mountain formations around the world that have human features along with these. And honestly, my favorite one to even just like look at out of those is the Mount Pimigawasset, because it is also known as the Indian Head. And when you look at the picture that I am going to put up there, you can look and you can see that it looks like the head of an indigenous man. And it's very, I don't know, I just think it's a very just beautiful mountain. That's one that honestly I would love to see in person, just because the visual is just so beautiful. Along with that, there are also seemingly man-made formations around the world that hold a lot of mystery with them, in the sense that their origins are undetermined, such as Stonehenge and the Maui stone statues on Easter Island. Natives to Easter Island for many years have also talked about the Maui and how they used to roam the land, as well as it being proven that if we were to pull up those giant stone statues, they would be bordering 70 feet tall with full bodies. Now, with Stonehenge, I'm just baffled. I don't really have like a theory or an idea for those. They're just baffling, because I don't have an explanation for that one, guys. I don't have an explanation there. Thank you so much for tuning into my first video essay, and I really hope you guys enjoyed learning about giants with me. If you'd like to continue your research or take a look at any of the websites that I use for my own research, I promise you that they will be left in links down below in my description. My name is Mason Poole. Thank you for watching, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, because I had a lot of fun making this video, and I feel like the more that I make, the better that they'll get. So thank you for sharing this experience with me, and hopefully I will see you next time.